Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to the Friday Q&A. We will be having a very special guest star in about 10 minutes. But in the meantime, how is everybody's weekend starting off? I guess it's not weekend yet. It feels like weekend.
Man,
I always
this
think
one's
of
delayed. It's
Is it-
still not going.
We got a lag.
Big time.
Maybe just try refreshing it.
I'll have to redo the chat.
That's okay. Is everyone here? Can they see? Yeah, it's not lagging.
It was just messing up.
There we go. Hello, everyone. How is everybody doing? And who do we have today? Who commented first? I think it was Andrea. It was Andrea. Oh, well, I did. I know I did. I always comment first. Good morning, Kelsey. Good morning. Let's see. Who else do we have? We have Sen Cross, Rosetta, Catherine, Beth, Susan, Wendy Work Art. Good morning, everybody. We have a super duper exciting topic today, so I hope that everyone has their pens. Real quick, did everybody get their email this morning? Because I sent out an email, and I'm noticing that more and more of my emails are ending up in promotional folders on Gmail, and I'm not quite sure why it's suddenly happening. So I just want to make sure that everyone got it. And if for any reason you're afraid that you're going to miss something, because we have a lot of stuff coming up. I know that I sent out the GDPR PDFs this week, and a lot of people didn't get those. When you find me in your promotional folder, the best thing to do is add me into your contacts. And that's going to make sure that when I do have something for you, that it's actually going to land in your inbox rather than in your promotions or your spam. So you can, like I said, just add me into your contacts and that won't happen anymore. Okay, cool. A lot of people said that they got theirs.
It was my promo folder. Yeah, make sure you move it back to your actual inbox. So
right. And all you
doing that to you.
All you got to do is like grab it and drag it and drop it into
depending on what email service you use.
Gmail's usually the one who does it the most. They really mess that up. Good morning, everyone. Yes. Okay, great. Everyone, most of them said that they got it. Yeah, I tried to send this one a little bit earlier because I knew that a lot of people would want in on today's topic. Let's see. Okay, yeah, it looks like everyone got it. Cool. Okay, guys. So I wanted to go ahead and let you know, since most of you got the email and you already know what the little PS at the bottom was about. So we are like 99.9% certain that Handmade Alpha Academy will be opening in June. Like that's when we want it launched by. That's our expected time frame. So for those of you who have been wondering when you should expect it to open for enrollment, it's going to be June. We're about over halfway done with the recording content. We've already got people in there testing. So everything's looking really, really good so far. We're going to have some amazing goodies for those of you who are on the email list. If you're not on the email list, Handmade Alpha VIPs are linked below if you want to join that and get in on all of that. So, okay, great. Everyone got it. Yay, I made it to a live stream. It's 1:30 a.m. here. Ooh. Well, be sure to go to bed once you're done because
on vacation in Texas. Why are you watching us? Go have fun.
Go have fun. We lived in Texas for
work.
A while. We were stationed in Texas for 6 months, was it?
I'm not going to say how I feel about Texas.
Oh, we didn't like Texas.
Well, we were in a bad part of Texas.
What was
San Angelo.
San Angelo, that's right. We were at Goodfellow Air Force Base, and I did not care for it.
My husband's work is automatically unsubscribing MailChimp emails because of information breach, I believe. We haven't received any emails about an information breach, so it probably doesn't affect everybody. I'll look into that more after the live stream.
Does that have to do, Melissa, are you talking about the GDPR stuff or?
No. Information breach. That means somebody got into their system and stole a bunch of info.
Oh, okay.
We didn't receive an email about that, so I'll have to look into that.
Well, unless it's just something that's going on with them personally. But
well, our stuff is stored with them, so it would involve everybody. But I don't think that's the case.
So for those of you who aren't aware, if you have a mailing list through MailChimp, since we've got like 5 minutes before we're going to start, make sure that you turn on and enable your GDPR fields. You're going to need to do that by May 25th. And you can find out more information about that by just Googling GDPR or enable let me rephrase this, enable GDPR fields MailChimp. If you Google that, it will take you to a page that will explain how to enable your GDPR fields. But
yeah, I mean, if you set up your MailChimp, you know how to set up all of your different emails to go out. It's super easy. There's just a little checkbox you click and it adds it on there.
Right. And next week, now keep in mind, we're not experts on this, but I'm thinking next week's Q&A, we're going to answer some of the questions that we can answer about GDPR. You guys just have to be able to understand that we're not experts on the topic.
Like, it doesn't, it's not a thing that matters here for like people in the United States. It's for Europe. So
I mean, but it
like,
does as
their laws were already more strict than ours. So we don't entirely understand how their system works. So we're just complying with it 100% to make it easy. There's probably ways to filter out European and all that kind of stuff, but it's one of those cover your butt kind of situations, because then people in the United States that are signing it too, you have extra evidence that they opted into your list. And
well, not only
that,
but what I suspect is going to happen, since we've got all this Facebook stuff going on and information breaches, I think that, just speculation, but I think that the US is going to follow suit very soon, simply because I think that as humans, we should have the right to know what types of information that any company has on us, whether it be a handmade business or a major corporation. And with MailChimp, when you are collecting data, via MailChimp, you can just download that information in a CSV.
Yeah, I mean, I think you should have the availability to request the information, but I don't think it should be mandatory that they add all these extra sign-on steps and stuff like that. It just makes marketing look more scary. Scarier than it needs to be. I think it should be the law that, if you email a company and say, what information do you have on me, they should have to provide that for sure. Like that should be, I mean, it's your information, you own it.
Right.
So, but forcing people to sign and click extra boxes and sign up twice and do all this other monotonous crap, I'm not a fan of it.
Either way, I think that we should expect it to happen to the US soon. Just the way with all the Facebook stuff is going, a lot of people speculate that it's going to hit the United States soon. And that
anybody else get mad? Did anybody get zucked?
Anybody gets zucked from poor Mark Zuckerberg? You know what? He's done some things.
He's such a good guy. I don't understand. Everybody gives him hate.
You know what?
He's just a lizard person. He's not going to hurt you.
He's just a lizard person. He's just a robot. Here's the thing.
I'm going to refill that since you drank all of it.
He's done some things that not everybody is going to agree with, but at the same time,
his programmers have done some things not everybody are going to agree with.
That's the thing. That's what he and I just talked about over breakfast. The thing is, everyone thinks that he is Facebook, when in reality, there's a million other people that are responsible. He's just the dorky spokesperson who isn't very good at talking. So I'm not like 100% happy with the whole Facebook situation, but at the same time, it's like we shouldn't just be pointing our fingers at Mark Zuckerberg. There's a million people that are behind Facebook, not just him. So actually, Facebook doesn't have that many. Facebook doesn't have that many employees. I can't remember how many they have, but for as big of a company it is, they don't have as many employees as you would imagine. Poor, yeah, he has more money than God. Well, I'm not saying poor, like literally poor. I'm saying that watching him up there on trial was probably one of the cringiest things I had ever seen.
It was like the ultimate example of a kid fixing their grandparents' internet.
Yeah, it was.
They had no idea what they were asking him, and
and there's both sides.
It was embarrassing.
There were two sides to the story. There were definitely two sides to the story, but the whole thing, you know what? We don't really, I don't have an opinion on it. If you guys want, because I know a lot of people have asked for my opinion. I don't have one. It's like, I don't think that they should have as much information as they have.
I do.
You do.
I do.
I don't know.
They have as much as you agreed for them to have.
That is true. All right, guys. So it is.
Can you scoot your chair over a little bit?
Yes.
I can't get in here.
All right, guys. It is noon, and we're already going to get hate in the replay for talking about Facebook.
Talking about the Zuck.
So let's kind of go. I love your shirt. It's very accurate. Thank you. They have another one. This is from Tea Turtle. Mm-hmm. Tea Turtle. Yeah, they have another one that says Crafty Fox, and I'm going to get that one next. But all right, guys, we have a special guest today. Michelle Harris is going to be joining us. She is an accountant. You can go ahead and unmute her and show her to the world. any second now. Have we unmuted her? There she is. Yay. Do a little dance. Oh,
I'm
wait.
trying to unmute. It won't let me unmute her.
Hold on a second. Michelle is coming. I promise. We have her back here. There she is.
There we go. I don't know doing that.
Perfect. Yay. All right. So Michelle is going to be answering. Yeah, I will control camera here. Michelle is going to be answering some questions for you guys in terms of accounting and bookkeeping. And I know that you guys have oodles of questions, but just starting out, Andrea says, hey, Michelle, just starting out, while you guys are thinking of questions, getting them typed into the comments, let's talk to Michelle. Let's dig her brain a little bit and kind of see you know, some of her background, her history. So Michelle, let's jump right in, since I know that they're going to bombard us in like just 5 seconds with a million questions. First of all, let's talk about your accounting background. What is your profession?
Okay, well, first off, before we start, I'm going to say I can't believe you didn't love Goodfellow. My ex-husband was Air Force. We were stationed there twice. I loved Goodfellow.
Really? You know
it was the water.
Oh, the water stunk so bad.
Well, yeah, I will say that you're right there. But I loved San Angelo. So, but anyway.
It was so hot.
Well, it is, but it's anyway. That was just like one of my favorite duty stations we had. So, but anyway, and of course, I was there way before you all were. So,
oh, it was probably way nicer too.
Yeah, I know it's changed a lot. But anyway, as far as my accounting background, I do have both my bachelor's and master's in accounting. I have worked in various industries. I actually worked for the services division there at Goodfellow for their accounting office for several years. That was actually my first big accounting job. I did their payroll for 3 years. But anyway,
back when it was good. Back when it was good. I said back when it was good.
Yeah, back when it was good. But anyway, and I've worked for manufacturing companies. I've worked with a little bit of everything, but I found that my passion was working with small businesses. So several years ago, I started doing my own consulting. I took a break from it a few years ago, but I like working with small businesses. I like helping them get their accounting on a good foundation, and that's just what I enjoy doing. I don't enjoy the big corporate accounting. So, that's my background. So.
It's probably way more rewarding too, because small businesses, I'm sure, are so much more grateful and easier to work with than some big corporation that's just like, do this, do that.
True. And it's just interesting. I love seeing how, because everybody does everything different. Every business is 100% different. So I love learning how everybody does stuff, seeing how it's done differently, and meeting the people. So that's why.
Awesome. All right. So what is your Etsy shop? Because I know that everyone is probably wondering. And for those of you who are in the comments right now, after the stream, all of Michelle's links are down below for both her consulting and her Etsy shop is down there if you want to take a look. But let's talk about your Etsy shop for a second. What do you do? What do you sell? And how did you get into Etsy?
Well, how I got into it was kind of accidental. I got a few years ago, Todd bought me a Cameo for Christmas. He didn't realize he was starting a monster. So, because it was like, oh, I could do all these decals now. So I started doing the decals, and that's what my Etsy shop is. I found that I was doing really well with the animals. So mine are all pet related. My decals are. And I'm a huge, yes, I found my niche. Yes.
Perfect.
Yes. I'm a huge animal lover myself. We have what we call as a zoo. We have a joke around here that any dog or cat in the neighborhood, there's like a underground railroad or something that everybody says, go to this house, they'll keep you, they'll feed you. So anyway, so it's kind of cool to be able to work, you know, like I said, because I love the animals, I like doing the decals, so I've been able to kind of combine both of those together.
That's awesome. So in terms of like where the overlap is, because I mean, accounting and the Etsy shop obviously are completely different mediums. How did those come together? Like, how has your accounting background helped in terms of running your own handmade business?
Well, I mean, it's made, of course, the bookkeeping part simpler because I understand how it all works. And so I guess I enjoy learning how everything works. Okay. I even took a break from accounting for a few years and did accounting software consulting, where I installed the software, learned the back end of the software. So just like with Etsy now, I'm able to see both sides of it. I know how the bookkeeping flows. I know the struggles that Etsy shop owners go through and how they get their info and everything. So it's kind of made me combine those two together. And so giving me a different level of knowledge that, like I said, I'm like you, I always like learning. Downtime, there's always some book to read, some video to watch, everything. So
you're our girl on the inside. You're our insider. Well, we are already getting some questions. I'll go ahead and ask one last one that I personally have. So in terms of some of the businesses that you see, maybe the Handmade Alphas, maybe the Etsy forums, because you know how people are, just they spill their life story in the Etsy forums. What is the biggest mistake in terms of bookkeeping that you see just in general in the handmade community?
I don't know if there's really a biggest. I see a lot of issues, of course, with expenses, people being afraid to take home office deductions, not understanding how to take the home office deduction, people missing out on mileage deduction. So that's, I guess, the largest part is they actually miss taking some deductions because they're afraid to take them. They're not 100% sure what they're allowed to take. So that's probably the number one thing.
And, you know, when it comes to those expenses, it's like pennies make dollars. We document every single thing down to the very last paper clip. And it goes into the business. We have a receipt for it. It's going down. So, all right. Exactly. So, Michelle, it looks like we have a question from Catherine. Oh, did you want to go ahead and throw out your disclaimer real quick before we...
I almost forgot completely about it. I just want to let you all know that I am an accountant. I do have all the accounting. I have over 20 years of accounting experience and knowledge. However, I am not a certified public accountant. I've just elected to never sit for that exam. I'm not a certified tax advisor. I'm not a certified tax accountant. So again, I'm answering your questions and giving you information based on my accounting knowledge and my accounting experience. But always check with your own personal accountants.
Going to kill our chat.
Oh, am I? Sorry.
What? Oh,
that's okay. I think it'll stay intact. We like messed up our chat. We'll fix it. No, it's still going. Okay. So first of all, Kitty Bionic says, thank you for helping animals in need. That's beautiful. But before that, Catherine Baker asked, hi, Michelle. I've started an Etsy store this year and have sold some product, but haven't turned a profit. And then in parentheses, she said, I keep buying new materials. How does this affect my taxes? So she's basically not making a profit yet. She's just putting all of her money back into the business. How would that affect her taxes?
That goes into whether or not, of course, it's a business or a hobby. The IRS expects you're not going to make money, especially your first couple of years. As long as you are actually trying to turn a profit. I know you'll see out there's like you should make a profit 3 in the first 5 years. If you do that, that kind of like just okays it with the IRS. However, if you don't freak out, because again, if you're actually trying to make a profit, you're actually advertising, you're actually trying to improve your processes, you're and continuing to put product out there, that's actually your goal, then you're okay. Now, of course, if you're going 5, 6, 7 years and still not turning a profit, then that's, financially, you may want to consider maybe it's not the best route. But as far as your taxes, it's not, as long as you're trying to make a profit and you're trying to run it like a business, then you're okay.
And I've heard from several people that it's like 5 years is what they expect where your growth period is. Like 5 years, if you're not there by like 5 years, you need to start being a little bit more careful. Exactly. Does that sound accurate? Yes. About 5 years around? Okay, great. And then let's see. Moon Lovers Jewelry said, I'm curious how to deduct things like internet and cell phone when the internet is used for home too, and the cell, while personal too, is also used to photograph and manage my Etsy listings and customer convos too. So basically balancing out personal use versus business uses when writing off those bills.
You can, I mean, that happens quite often. You are deducting, of course, cell phone, internet, and they're in your personal name. The thing is kind of to get a percentage in your mind. Like a lot of my clients, it's 50-50, 50% personal, 50% business. They feel comfortable that's what it's used for. Now, if you're using your cell phone just to occasionally take a picture and the rest of the time it's all personal, then you're looking at a smaller percentage. But that's what I always try to tell my clients to do, is figure out how much of it you think is business and how much is personal, and then find that split for those bills for your deduction.
Awesome. And then let's see. Roya asked, I was advised to list my expenses and save my receipts and was told that I could list my deposits as trade day sales. I sell at our local flea market. What should I begin doing here? Let me know if you want me to reread that.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what she's asking.
Okay, I was advised to list my expenses and save my receipts and was told that I could list my deposits as trade day sales. I sell at our local flea market. What should I begin doing here? Be doing here. Trade day sales. Maybe we could have her rephrase that.
Yeah, because I mean, it doesn't matter what you call your income. I mean, every company, calls their income something different. It's just at the bottom line, it's your income. So right. It doesn't really matter what you call it. What you call it is an internal thing. So you might have your online income and your trade income, and personally, you can bounce it between whatever kind of income that's an internal. But they are correct about listing your expenses. Always keep all your receipts. And of course, nowadays with electronic, you can scan everything in. It's just the same thing, just like with keeping your paper, you have to make sure that electronic's going to be accessible 2, 3, 4 years down the road if you need to with the IRS. So that's one thing to be careful, is if you are doing the electronic route, is making sure you're backing everything up so you have at least 2 copies of it.
Right. So, good advice. And then Anne said, this actually goes along with what you just said. She said, my problem is inventory, cost of goods sold, etc. Recommendations on a good inventory program. I'm currently using Wave for my accounting, and I know they don't have anything that integrates yet. So basically inventory programs.
Well, your inventory programs, I will say, they get expensive. You're getting into some of the bigger programs. Your QuickBooks does have an inventory to it if you get the full version of QuickBooks. And I believe Xero, which is another small business accounting software, they've got an inventory. But again, you're getting into their actual full version, not the self-employed versions. I've seen a lot of smaller businesses track that by Excel spreadsheets. Again, that's a lot of manual work on your part. But for cost savings, your Excel spreadsheets are going to be the more effective way to go. But if you really want to get into your tracking it correctly, start looking at, like I said, this little bit, your full version of QuickBooks. I think you have to have QuickBooks Plus in order to have the inventory. And then, like I said, Xero, and of course, there's other like Sage 50, and there's a bunch of other softwares, but you're getting more and more expensive as you go up.
Right, and QuickBooks still integrates with Etsy, right? I don't use QuickBooks.
Yes.
Okay, great. That's what I thought, and that makes it way easier.
Yeah, Xero actually, I think they've added an Etsy too. Xero's coming in as they're like the big competitor for QuickBooks. They're the ones that kind of force QuickBooks to go to the cloud-based.
Oh, okay.
It's Xero with an X. So.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've heard of that one. And then Kitty Bionic asked, how do you determine what's an expense versus an asset?
That kind of comes into 2 questions. One, the life of it. I mean, is it going to last you longer than a year? And then 2, the amount of it. For small businesses, I generally say, choose a limit in your mind, like 200 or 250. And if it's over that amount and it's going to last you more than a year, then it becomes an asset. If it's lower than that, then it's just an expense to you. Or if it's something that's not going to last a year. So you're looking, when you get into buying your cutting machines, your printers, your sewing machines, or stuff like that, machinery that's going to last you multiple years, you're getting into your assets. But even some of them, I mean, because you can buy sewing machines now for $100. That's not enough to make it an asset. I would make that an expense.
Right.
So kind of get $1, $2.50 for small businesses seem to be a comfort zone. For anything over that, then it becomes an asset.
So I kind of have a personal question to add on to that.
Okay.
For example, this is like on the nerdy side of things, but we rebuild computers almost every single year, but we're not building little computers. These computers can be upwards of about $5,000. If we were to be rebuilding one every year, would that be considered an asset, or would it be considered
It would still be an asset. You would just constantly be going through a disposal on your books, because the computer could last longer than a year. You're just selecting not to have it last. Computers generally are considered to last 3 to 5 years. I mean, I understand there's always new stuff coming out. So, but no, that would be an asset. You're just going to constantly be going to putting it on your books, taking it off your books, putting it back and forth. So.
Yeah.
Okay, that was like a personal question. That wasn't on here, but learn something every day. All right, Tina said, now I assume that she's talking about the states that now require sales tax, like Washington. But her question is, I've been charged by Etsy a few times sales tax on a sale. What do I do about this? It seems it was done by Etsy with no input from me. I hear your doggy.
You hear my dogs?
That's okay.
Give me one moment. I'm going to shut the door. They're barking at something.
We understand. We have several loud animals running around. Actually, Toots is asleep over there on the bar. I don't know where. All right.
Yeah, I have one that if anybody walks up and down the road, you know, they're like, that's too close to the house. So they bark at her.
Guard dogs.
Sales tax expense. Of course, now, like you were saying, no question, they didn't ask you. Washington State's made it a requirement, so Etsy doesn't have to. They notified you, so they don't have to ask you. They're required to take that, and that is an expense to you. Because it's going to start happening more and more often, I would actually create a separate line item and call it sales tax expense. But it is a business deduction for you. I really look for more and more states to follow, like Washington and everything, because they're all tired of missing out on that sales tax.
Right.
Stuff like Etsy and stuff where you sell online. So yeah, just list it as an expense. It's another line item for you.
Yeah, because this whole selling online thing is relatively new. People forget that, you know, not even 5 years ago, most people were still afraid to just even enter their credit card online. And now we're looking at major businesses like Toys R Us completely shutting down because nobody is going in stores shopping like how they used to. Everyone's doing it online. So with that, you know, things are going to become a little bit stricter in the realm of finances and bookkeeping. You know, as technology advances. So let's see. Magically Eclectic asks, what do you suggest someone that doesn't know anything about small business bookkeeping and accounting do to start and get over their nerves to do these things that need to be done? So basically, where do you start when you have no idea what to do and you're just terrified of even knowing where to start, like where to begin?
There's a couple of resources. One, most cities, it may, if you're in a smaller city, but some city close to you should have a small business administration office. They are a great resource of information. A lot of times they'll have free classes to like get you started on bookkeeping and stuff. I would suggest, I think some of them may still call them the small business development centers, but they're all under the small business administration. A lot of times you'll find them connected with your local community colleges. And that's another suggestion. If you have the time and have, you know, the resources, take Accounting 101. You know, go to your community college. A lot of times they'll have night classes or Saturday classes or even online classes nowadays with so many classes being online. And that Accounting 101 is going to give you a very good foundation for learning the basics of bookkeeping and accounting work. Of course, you can also hire consultants like me, but that gets a little more costly. I mean, if you're basically learning from the very beginning. But like I said, check out your community college, check out your small business administration. Those are some good resources to start learning.
Right. That's especially, I mean, you know, I think that fear is the number one thing that keeps people from actually taking action, because it's just that realm of the unknown, and anything that we're uncertain of, we're automatically kind of apt to just dismiss it and think, well, I just don't know how to do that, and they give up on it rather than This isn't something that you can just push aside and never do. It has to be done, whether you're doing it or whether you're hiring someone like Michelle. You have to do it. It's not like a choice here. So,
yeah. Worst comes to worst, get yourself a shoebox, throw every receipt in it, and then find a local consultant or an online consultant like myself to help you at the end of the year sort through everything and get everything in order for your taxes. So if you really just don't want to do it, like I said, throw it all in a box or a folder. At least just keep everything, every receipt, every invoice. Make sure you have copies of all that.
Awesome. All right, and then let's see. Oh, so back to Roya's question. She was the one who asked about selling at the flea market.
Okay.
What she meant was, how should she be listing that income? But I think we covered that already, that basically all income is treated equally in the eyes of the IRS gods. Income is income. So, all right.
It's just a division internally, so you know how your income's coming in.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And someone said Paper and Spark has some awesome inventory spreadsheets, which I've heard. I've heard that Paper and Spark is a really great one. I've never personally checked it out, but I hear it all the time. Let's see. Andrea Peters says, I was told that QuickBooks is the easiest way to keep track of expenses. I'm really not sure how to use it, and it's confusing. Where can I go to get the best training to learn how to use QuickBooks?
QuickBooks, there's a lot. I will say there are a lot of YouTube videos out there. There's a lot of people like myself, consultants and CPAs that have created videos on the basics of QuickBooks. QuickBooks also offers training. I think maybe the basics are free, and then you start getting into your pay. They actually have their own kind of Intuit University kind of concept. And then of course, I do a lot of that myself, and other accounting consultants will do that, where they'll come in and train you on it. QuickBooks, once you get that basic idea of it, I think you're going to be okay. It's just, again, it's something new. QuickBooks Self-Employed, which is a smaller step that they started a few years ago, is actually a really user-friendly. So the only downside to it is it does not track sales tax. That's like the biggest flaw in it to me, because all of us need to track sales tax, and they don't have that functionality. And that's why I got looking at Xero, because Xero is basic. They call it cash book. It does track sales tax for you. So, but again, there's numerous different videos, people offering training. There's a lot of options out there.
Yeah, I think that Google would probably just be their best friend in this case. Usually if you can't find something, just Google it, and you'll find someone who has created, what you're looking for, usually for free. You can usually find lots of YouTube videos when it comes to any medium that'll help you out. So Stacy asks, if I purchased assets last year from my business, back before she was making an income, can I deduct them from this year's taxes?
Well, the assets need to be in the year that you purchase them. So, was she not in business the year before? Or if you're not in business the year before, there's a little gray area there. Like if you're ramping up to get ready for your business and you officially didn't start it till, like, say, January 2018, then yes, those assets can go into 2018 as part of your startup cost. If you were in business in 2017, then you need to they should have been a depreciation deduction in 2017.
Yeah. So, and that's how we did the Handmade Alphas, because obviously Handmade Alpha Academy isn't launching till 2018, but everything that we purchased back in 2017, regardless of the fact that we weren't making a profit from the Handmade Alphas at that point, and we won't be until June of this year, that was still things that we bought in 2017. So we wrote those off for 2017. No, that's fine. Okay, so let's see. Tia Blackstar asks, trying to get the hang of all this accounting and tax stuff. Estimated quarterly taxes are scary. Are there any books or websites that explain these things in layman's terms that you would recommend?
I'm drawing a blank. But I know there are. I am drawing a complete blank, but I tell you all what I'll do is I'll figure it out after we finish this, and I'll list some things in the Handmade Alpha Facebook group.
Awesome. And
so, because I'm just drawing a complete blank right now on books.
And I might be able to offer like a quick bit of advice for this one. The website Udemy, Udemy, they make they're almost like little courses. So I've noticed that they're not nearly as in-depth as things like Handmade Titan University and some of those big courses, but you can usually get a course on, you know, a small subject for about like $10. So if you have like a specific program that you want to learn about, or you just want to learn about these things like in general, you can usually buy courses from experts at decent prices. You just can't expect them to be, you know, these big, huge, elaborate courses like what you would find, you know, in Handmade Titan University and Handmade Alpha Academy. But I've taken several Udemy courses and they're not that bad. You just have to look at the ratings, because basically when you buy one, it's like you get what you get, even if you don't like it. So there's no money back guarantee with it. So let's see. Oh, where are we going? Okay. Moonstruck Charms asks, have you talked about how to calculate depreciation yet?
Depreciation is a complicated subject because it changes constantly as far as the tax laws for it. Most people for estimating will just do a straight line, but when you actually do your taxes, that's where it gets into, you need to be talking to an actual accountant, a CPA, because again, depreciation, those, I don't keep 100% up with the depreciation because they change so often. So there are articles out there each year about how depreciation and stuff, but again, that can get quite complicated. So
that's going to be one of those find yourself an accountant.
That's even with us, like our computer expenses, like some years, I know one year we spent like $7,000 on computer upgrades
alone.
And they put that, you know, as depreciation. And then other years when we filed a little bit closer to the red, they just, you know, wrote off the entire value.
Right. We've got a really great accountant, so we just kind of let her handle it. And when it comes to weird, obscure things like that, where you don't know, we just give her our numbers
and say, you know what, you do. we'll pay for the insurance. So if you mess it up, you got to pay for it. But here's our stuff.
Sorry to all of our accountants out there who have to deal with this craziness. Deborah asks, Michelle, does paying sales taxes in other states mean we have to file a form for that state, even if it's not where we do business and live?
Now, if you're talking about like where Etsy's doing the Washington state and stuff, Etsy's taking care of that for you. You don't have to file. Now, if you are a crafter that's actually like doing craft shows in other states, maybe let's say your home base is North Carolina, but you do craft shows in Tennessee and South Carolina and Georgia and all their surrounding, then you do need to file with each of those states, and then you will be collecting sales tax when you're in their state, and you will also be submitting the returns based on, you know, monthly, quarterly, annually, however they set it for you.
Unless you're a military spouse, and then you have the Military Spouses Act that is on your side.
That is true. You are correct.
I had to live with that for a very long time.
People weren't super happy when we file taxes in California, and we tell them, yeah, we're not filing for California, we're filing for Ohio. And then we'd have like the Ohio Small Business something act where you don't have to pay any Ohio sales tax for the first. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So if you're a military spouse, make sure that you're talking to, what is the name of whatever their family readiness center is, and they can help you out.
They'll hook you up with all that craziness.
So Roya asks, what penalties am I looking for not filing my taxes at a loss for 2016? I started buying and registering things in November 2016. I know I need to go back and do it. So,
you didn't. I guess my question is, did you not file taxes at all, or did you just not file the business? Now, if you just didn't file the business part of it, you're fine. Do an amended return. There's no penalty. If you owe money, now they will calculate a penalty of interest based on when it was originally due. So it would have been, if you're talking 2016, so April 15th, 2017 is where interest and penalty would start. if you owe. Now, if you did not file at all, please file as soon as possible, because that failure to file penalty is very large with the IRS. So,
I mean, she would have gotten a letter by now, wouldn't she?
No, actually, they're they're usually 18 months to 2 years behind on sending letters and stuff. So yeah.
It sounded more like before she actually started the business, she started registering and buying startup supplies, and she just never filed for that stuff. Like she never sold anything in 2016.
Yeah. And then that's fine. And actually, if it was still startup, you could have put it on your 2017. If you actually hadn't, started selling anything, you hadn't officially went in business, you were just buying the startup supplies, that can actually go into the year you actually start the business.
Okay.
But yeah, you're not looking at a penalty to amend a return. You're just looking at penalty and interest if you owe additional amount.
Okay, great. And then Magically Eclectic asks, what if you ended up losing receipts in a move? How bad will that affect us?
Unfortunately, we've all been there. I had a pipe burst in my house once and lost quite a few receipts and paperwork and stuff. So we all, that's the plus too, if you're using an accounting system or you're scanning them in, you at least have some backup. But your receipts too, keep in mind, you have bank statements, you have credit card statements. Of course, the issue would be cash. So if you were ever audited and you didn't have those receipts, then they're not going to allow those deductions if you can't prove them somewhere. So if they're cash receipts, you may come into some issues down the road if you can't prove those. But if they're, like I said, bought on a credit card, bought with a check, they're going to be on some statement somewhere. So you're still going to be able to back it up.
Right. And you can request all of that, for even bank statements and things, you can just request all of that and have at least something, a little bit's better than nothing at all. If you weren't able to document that you didn't, maybe you lost a receipt for a pen, that's not as big a deal as if you made a purchase with your credit card for a new laptop. So, document what you can. And I believe that your name is Cher, but if I'm wrong, feel free to yell at me. Are accountants specialized? For example, fine artists working in residencies, grants, let's see,
patron
donations, selling in galleries and online, etc.
Accountants, I think I know what she's asking. Of course, accounting is at the basic the same for any industry, but it is getting more and more common for accountants to specialize. Like crafters is one of the areas I've been specializing in, and also like working with construction, because one of the weird ones that like cost accounting. But so if you can find a specialized, they're going to be better for you because they're really going to know the ins and outs of your industry. However, any accountant is going to have the knowledge for your bookkeeping. It's just the specialized gets into the oddities, the specifics just for your business. So I think you'll find that most industries, though, accountants are beginning to specialize. And the thing is, with online now, that allows them to specialize because they're not held just to their little area. They can do accounting for anybody. I mean, like I have a client in Texas that I do the books for and help him. And of course, he's got the online version of QuickBooks, so I can sign right into it just like I'm sitting in his office. So that's, you're going to find people that specialize and can help you. And like I said, if you can't find in your local area, expand your search, because with online, people can help you from anywhere.
And Michelle's link is down below, just so everyone down there, if you guys want to check out her website. So Moon Lovers Jewelry asks, what constitutes sufficient documentation? If I buy beads online, is the receipt enough, or do I need to keep the credit card bill or bank statement to show that I really paid for it?
I would keep both. Always keep your bank statements and your credit card statements. Always keep those. But you need the receipt too, if at all possible. The more documentation, the better you are. And this is from an accountant. You keep as much as you can. You don't want to go overboard. So like, you don't need to keep the packing slip and stuff like that if they sent you. But if you have the receipt or the invoice, and then like I said, the bank and credit card statements, then you're good.
Right. I always think of it like if the IRS sent you a letter that said, prove it, just prove it, would you be able to prove it? As long as you're able to prove it, you should be okay. Just make sure that you have, you know, that stuff saved somewhere. Angelica asks, can I start paying quarterly taxes in the middle of the year? We just filed regular taxes for everything, but I'd like to set up quarterly taxes so that it doesn't hit us so hard next year.
I think that would be called semi-annual taxes.
Yeah, you can make estimated taxes at any time. You even don't have to, if you want to make a monthly, you can make a monthly deposit. They're not going to penalize you for giving them money. The minimum you're supposed to be making, of course, is quarterly. Now, one thing to watch is your deadlines are not quarterly like you think. Because when you make estimated tax payment, the first quarter is January through March. The next quarter is only April and May. And the next one is June, July, and August. And then the last one is September, October, November, December. So I don't know why they started doing that a few years ago where they did that switch, but just watch that. Those are the ones that you're actually supposed to be making at the minimum on those quarterly deadlines. But again, if you want to send them money weekly, they're not going to turn it down. So, and you can start at any point during the year.
Yeah, and that sounds easier. I mean, not easier for our accountant, but easier for us. I don't know how she would feel. Our accountant's super sassy, so I don't know how she would feel if I called her up. I'm like, hey.
I hate the way that our accountant does our stuff, though, because she'll go through the whole thing and make it sound like you're like the lying piece of crap that's giving her all the information.
She's so sassy.
And then at the end of it, she gets like this
she gets
year,
all cocky. And
this year we thought we were going to owe like a couple $1,000s, and she worked her accounting magic and got us $1,000 back. And through the whole thing, she did the whole like, oh, you're a piece of crap kind of mentality. And then she was like, how much do you think you owe? And I was like, 1,000 or more. And she's like, how about I get you back 980? I was like, okay,
go for it. Yeah,
I'm happy with that.
She's got like what? How much? She has like.
She's like 34 years. Or
yeah,
like
she's a trooper. She's got a really great reputation, but that's why it's really important to hire somebody who's good at this, who this specializes in accounting, because they're going to know.
She actually has a bunch of Etsy sellers that come to her every year that use like the tax filing software that you can use online.
TurboTax.
And she said, absolutely don't use that if you run a business.
Yeah.
She says that her like 90% of her work is fixing those for people.
Yeah. Before I move on to the next question, Michelle, what is your opinion of people, small businesses doing their own taxes with TurboTax? Because our accountant hates it.
Or any other tax software.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest, out of the ones out there, TurboTax is one of the ones that I would actually recommend. It's not, but again, when you're starting to get into like the oddities of depreciation and all this stuff like that, if you don't know how to answer your questions right, TurboTax is no help.
Right.
So it's a good software for a small business, I think, for doing your taxes. But again, if you've got to know how to answer each question correctly, because if not, TurboTax can't do it correctly.
I think the big thing was a lot of people would file things under the wrong section. So like we have computer expenses, and then cell phone bills, internet bills, new cell phones, and then all the other actual store supplies.
The percentages of everything that we actually use for business.
That apparently was like the biggest problem. People were just putting things in the wrong box.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I said, if you don't understand accounting and where stuff should go, it doesn't matter what software you use.
There's room for error,
Yeah, and now I will say my little 2 bits, and I may get angry emails. Do not go to H&R Block. So that is like your accountant is with TurboTax. That's how I am about H&R Block.
Now
that's funny because our accountant, it's H&R Block, but it's Block Advisor. So they're just on a payroll from H&R Block, but they're still independent tax accountants.
Right. They actually have, exactly. They have the accounting knowledge. Most of the people working at H&R Block, like years ago, I'll be honest, I actually thought one tax season I'll go work for H&R Block, and I had like 1 day training, and that was it.
Wow.
They never go through me. And I did every year when I was at Goodfellow, I did the VITA program, where they do the taxes free for the servicemen and stuff. I had a full week's training to do the volunteer program. And so, I mean, that just really kind of opened my eyes, and I've corrected a lot of H&R Block taxes. Those are the ones I see to get back and fix it.
Yeah, our block advisor's accountant is getting ready to go over all of our stuff because she believes some stuff was messed up. It's actually pretty funny you mentioned that about the Air Force program, though, because I had a bunch of buddies. They were getting airmen to volunteer to do taxes for people, and they were only training them for a day.
So
Really?
they were advertising it all over base, and was like, I'm not going to give my taxes to some airman who just learned how to do this. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
What?
all right, let's see. Oh man, Craftosaurus Rex Creations asks, that is an awesome name. Everyone seems to be having, okay, I agree with this question, by the way. I was going to ask this to begin with. So everyone seems to be having an aneurysm about the new Etsy billing policies that will automatically pull fees and taxes out from Etsy payment sales. Why is this such a big deal? And I want to know that too, because I feel like this is a duh moment. Like they're just going to take things out of our payment account. It seems like the right thing to do. Why is everyone freaking out?
I'll be honest, I'm with you. I've read several postings about it and stuff, and to me, it's a good thing. I did see one person post it, like they had their expenses come out of one account and their deposits go into a different account. Yes, now you can't do that, but I didn't really understand why they had two separate business accounts, so that didn't make sense to me anyway. You should just have the one business account that everything's flowing through. And so, no, I don't understand either. To me, it's a good thing. It simplifies everything. So.
To me, it makes the difference between having to pay back at the end of the year. If you're not, like, we don't pay quarterly taxes, we just save up and we pay everything at the beginning of the year. To me, it just makes the difference is you're not going to be paying as much back at the end of the year. You'll be getting it back because it's all going to be deducted straight from Etsy. You don't have to worry about doing that part anymore.
Right, and Etsy keeps track. Like they tell you how much you're making. It's
on your 1099. Like everything will be listed there at the end of the year for you when they give you your if you're making more than 20,000.
If anyone in the comments wants to like maybe talk about this or say what your main concerns are, but not including like personal concerns, like where you're saying, oh, I would rather have my money here, not concerns like that. If you have any legitimate concerns when it comes to like taxes and things like that, you can put those in the comments. I get that some people have personal preferences, but in terms of like,
the government doesn't care about your preferences.
Right. If you have like an actual question that pertains to, because I keep seeing like taxes coming up and it's not going to be any different. I just don't understand. So if there's anything that you're seeing like some incongruency that you want to discuss, feel free to leave that in the comments. But in the meantime, EJ McDonald asks, crazy question. No questions are crazy. But is it necessary to keep track of inventory for a handmade business? I've been told by an accountant that it's not necessary, but I need to just keep up with expenses and income.
A lot of it depends on what size your handmade business is. I'll be honest with mine, with the decals, I expense everything as they come in. I don't keep track of inventory. Now, if you are making up a whole lot of, like say maybe you make clothing and you're holding the clothing and you might have the clothing for quite a while, or you might be buying bolts upon bolts of fabric, then you want to keep inventory because you've got so much money tied up in things that you're not going to turn over. But if you're turning your things over within, a year or so, I recommend don't keep track of inventory. That's a headache. But again, if you've got stuff you're buying and stocking up and large quantities and large dollar amounts of it, then yes, you want to track inventory.
Okay, great. And then Wendy Work Art. Oh no. She wants to know. She said, I know a girl that's this isn't really like handmade, but I know a girl that's a massage therapist and has never filed taxes for her business. She's been a massage therapist for about 7 years now. How much trouble do you think she'll be in if the IRS catches on?
Handcuffs them out, I think.
Oh no.
Yes, definitely. She needs to file. And they're going to, I will say that, sooner or later, someone's either going to turn her in or she's going to have the wrong client that knows, that's going to be an IRS agent or a tax agent. It's not worth it. Don't file your tax. It's just not worth it.
Worst case scenario, if if you're like us and you don't save enough throughout the year and you file your taxes and you owe more back than what you have, you can do payment plans and stuff with the IRS.
Yeah, we had that happen once.
Yeah, we goofed up. We thought we had an exemption we didn't have. We ended up owing a couple grand more, and we just did a payment plan. Like, it's not that big of a deal. As long as you're not constantly doing that,
right,
it's not that big of a deal.
It only happened to us once, but it only took us like a couple months to pay off. The IRS will,
work with you.
They'll work with you. They just want their money. So as long as
your accountant will work with them.
Well, right.
Send letters back and forth.
That was the year that H&R Block messed up our taxes too, because we probably didn't really owe as much as they made it seem like we did that year. So our accountant's going to be looking at that like in the next few weeks. But I wanted to give her a break until, you know, tax season ended. I didn't want to bombard her with that, but
yeah, because we're registering a couple of other things too. And she's like, yeah, well, I'm going on vacation May 19th. So message me after that and we'll set some stuff up.
I was like, you deserve it, girl. You deserve it. Go on your vacation.
You get the tax season and they're ready for the vacation. While we're talking about the IRS, though, I just want it right quick to throw this out there so people, the IRS will never call you.
No.
There are so many. I mean, I've gotten the calls too. My mom has all these, you know, saying you owe money, you've got to pay it right now, or call this number back. It's the IRS. The IRS will never call you. They will always send you letters. So if you get any call from anybody saying it's an IRS, it's not. Don't answer or don't respond or don't call back. Even, you know, you're supposed to report them, but I mean, I'll be honest, I don't report them because I know there's so many of them, you know, everybody.
All the time. We get them all the time.
You know, funny, I got a funny story about that. When I was in the Air Force, I was in the office with my flight chief. He was a master sergeant at the time. And we actually got a phone call, and I'm in a compartmented information facility. So like you have to have a clearance to get into this building. And one of them called the civilian phone that was in our office, and the master sergeant picked up. And I've never heard someone like in uniform threaten somebody that much. Like he's like, sir, you know, you're calling a compartmented information facility. Like you are breaking a federal law right now, and they can trace all of this. And they were immediately like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I've never heard one just not hang up, but he was apologizing. It was funny.
That's hilarious. Yeah. So Rosetta wants to know, Michelle, what would you suggest to someone that is currently researching what to keep track of from the start? So I think she's asking just like if you're starting your business, you haven't started yet. What should you just have it in your head that you're going to keep track of? Like maybe like, you know, just a short list of things to have in mind.
All of it.
All of it.
Right, that's exactly the answer. All of it. I mean, anything, you know, from supplies you're buying, office supplies, furniture. You know, if you're like the room I'm in is my craft room. You know, and I have a craft table and I have a heat press, and you know, so any equipment you're buying, any supplies. Also, buying books to read. You know, that's part of your learning. If it's part of your business, you know, so if you buy a course, a class, go take a class. And the thing is, too, is you got to keep in mind is your mileage as you're buying these supplies. It's not as big of an issue now because people order everything on Amazon and have it shipped to them. But, you know, if you're driving to take a course, that's a business mileage for you. You know, if you're driving to Hobby Lobby to go pick up supplies, that's business mileage for you. So, you know, just anything related to that business, you need to be keeping track of.
So personal question. Now this is one that I haven't had a chance to look more into because I've been asked. So I thought I'd go ahead and ask you, and I'll probably talk to my accountant about it, you know, too, just for safety's sake. But in terms of the Handmade Alpha Academy, since it is an educational resource, for one, will they be able to write that off? And for two, as the educator on my part, do I need any type of is there anything that I need to do on my end to make sure that that's possible for them? Like a certification that says that I am, you know, a educational resource, or are they just able to write that off as long as they're proving that this is a business class? Do you know offhand?
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's something, you know, they're in the handmade business, they're doing something that's helping them learn, helping them grow their business. You know, I will say IRS kind of likes it if you do like have a certificate. I completed it. Yeah. This is certified, but it's not required.
I'm going to be doing that too. I'll make sure that they have some documentation that says that they, you know, took it, completed it, you know, so.
Yeah. No, as long as it has to do with your business and your learning, it's fine. Now, if you went to go take a course on how to play a guitar, has nothing to do with your business, that's not a tax deduction.
Right.
So as long as it has to do with your business, you're fine.
Perfect. Well, now you guys know we'll do everything that we need to do to make that possible for those who want to enroll in Handmade Alpha Academy. But that's what I thought, because I know that Renee Christine says that HTU is a write-off, but I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so EJ McDonald asks, when is it required to file quarterly taxes? Is it when you make a profit or anytime?
If you're making, I think what the minimum is right now. I think if you're going to owe more, and don't quote me on this number, this is one to check because they keep changing these numbers, but I think if you're going to make at least $2,000 or going to owe at least $2,000 on your taxes for your business is when they're wanting you to make quarterly deposits. Whatever the number is, if you're over that at the end of the year, you could be assessed a penalty for not making the estimated taxes. So if you're going to make, I tend to, my mindset, if I'm going to make at least $1,000 profit, then I look at estimated tax deposits. But I think the number is still 2,000. But again, don't quote me on that one because I haven't checked the number in a while.
Okay. And then Andrea asks, Alaska doesn't take any sales tax, whether in state or out of state. I want to know if Etsy will try to take out taxes that don't actually
I don't actually have to worry about.
Well, they're only going to take out taxes on the states that are required. So even though you're in Alaska, yes, Alaska is one of the sales tax states. If you sell into Washington State, you are still going to have to pay sales tax because your product's going into Washington State.
Yeah, right. You're making a sale through Washington.
Right. But no, they're not going to take out just randomly, you know, start taking out Tennessee tax, which they're not one of the ones requiring it, or Alaska, which has no sales tax. I think there's 4 or 5 states that still have no sales tax.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Moonstruck Charms asks, isn't how often you file your taxes, quarterly, semi-annual, annual, determined by how you set up your fiscal calendar?
Generally, you're only filing once a year. Now, you make estimated tax payments quarterly. Now, if you're having to pay state sales tax, that's determined by the State Department of Revenue. You know, how often each state's got their own different guidelines, but your federal is only once a year, whether you're on a calendar year or a fiscal year, you have one due date for your federal return.
Okay. And then Susan, she said, I may have missed this because I got here late. Will Etsy take the state tax of the state we live in out, or will those go through as normal and we pay them? I'm just a little confused.
Etsy is only taking out for the states that are requiring them to, which is, I think there's 2 of them. There's Washington, and isn't there one other, like Pennsylvania or something? I think.
Yeah, I think someone would have to type that into the comments because I'm not.
It's one of the New England, somewhere up in New England states. I think started that, but no, they're not going to. So if you're in, you know, Texas or Tennessee or wherever you're at, you're still going to have to handle your own sales tax internally. It's just for the states that are required. Now, I have a feeling over time, your states are going to add to it.
Okay.
That's what I was wondering, because I know California was one of the first few states that started charging sales tax for online purchases, and I wasn't sure if they were going to start doing that for like California and those states as well.
Only if California has passed the same type of law as Washington State has. California hasn't passed it.
Because I know when we were living in California, anything I bought online had a friggin' a ridiculous sales tax on it.
Yeah.
California is always state, county, local. We were stationed in California once too, so I understand that.
Buying a computer there is a nightmare because they actually have a tax, and then they actually have an electronics disposal fee for every piece of electronic that you buy. And on some of my pieces, it was like $100 or more. It was ridiculous. It was absolutely insane.
They have a special tax on music equipment.
They have the tax on music equipment. something about sound ordinance enforcement. So it's really, I don't like California and their taxes. They do weird stuff.
And D says, let's hope the IRS isn't monitoring this, since a lot of people have mentioned not paying taxes. That's hilarious. And then Sharon said, the IRS will show up at your door if you get in trouble. This happened to my daughter and son-in-law. Okay. Lisa asked, what's a good accounting software when you have 2 businesses to track?
The plus 2, if you go to your desktop softwares, is once you pay one fee, you can have as many different companies as you want. That's the downside to the cloud-based softwares, is you have to pay for each business. But I will say, like QuickBooks, for example, they're realizing that this is keeping people from going online. So you pay the full price for the first one, and then you pay a greatly reduced price for the second one. But as far as preference of software, they all can do multiple companies. It's just a matter of what it's going to cost you.
Okay, great. This name @DoodleNoodle @DoodleNoodle asks, I just opened an Etsy store this year. Let's say after all deductions, I only make $200 profit this year. Do I have to file taxes?
Yes. Even if you made a loss, yes. And a loss can help you, because a loss will offset, if you have other income coming from other places, that loss will offset that. So yes, always file taxes.
Okay, great. And then Magically Eclectic asks, as an alternative to paying quarterly taxes, what is your take on taking 10% from our total profits on each sale and putting it into either a bank account or a lockbox and not touching it until tax time?
That's an awesome idea. But again, if you're hitting over that dollar amount that I spoke of earlier, whether it's still $2,000 or whatever it is, if you're going to owe more, you're going to be hit penalty if you've not made estimates. So, but no, that's great. Every sale, that's a very disciplined person. That's a great, it's a lot more disciplined than most people are.
Yeah, and that's kind of how we are. We just save for we did before with the jewelry business. Obviously with the Handmade Alphas, we have to, think a lot on a larger scale. But for our jewelry business, it was relatively simple because we had that balance, and we had the ability to just go ahead and save because we already knew what we would need to owe. And there's a lot of calculators online that you can use, but most of them actually will tell you.
They don't account for the business expenses and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that. So the free ones, at least.
Yeah. So, it's almost like the longer that you do it, the more you get to know your own business, the more you get to know your own expenses and what to expect each year. Unless a major law changes or you get some obscure deduction that you've never had before. So
now I see a lot of people talking about paying stuff with credit cards so they can get the points and the cash back and all that kind of stuff.
For the Etsy.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't that go in the same section like when you make a certain amount of profit off of a savings account and you make interest off of it? Doesn't that also have to be filed on there? Like, because you're making cash. Like if you're spending a couple $1,000s a year on Etsy, paying your bills and doing whatnot, like you're going to be making probably over $100. Like that's still interest gained.
Yeah.
And again, I think there's a number. Again, I don't do taxes as such.
Yeah, this is a weird one. I figured I would just ask.
There's a number out there that I think like cover, and all of them. If you get so much cash back, they have to supply you with a tax document, because you definitely have to report it. But yeah, if you're earning money on anything, you're taxed on it, unfortunately. And you were talking about if there's a major tax law. Of course, we do have the big tax law change this year, which will change everything. So even this year, probably more than anything, it's more important that you do talk to someone about your taxes, because it's the whole ball game's changed. And with, of course, the deductions, the standard deduction, you get personal exemptions. A big thing, too, that's changed is meals and entertainment and stuff. Entertainment is no longer deductible at all. So, like, if you do business on a golf course, that used to be a big one. That's not deductible anymore. It's still in question whether or not when you take a client to do a meal, whether or not that's going to be deductible. There's so many different interpretations of the tax law. I actually looked up last night to see if there's anything new on it, and there's not. There's still there's disagreements, so no one really knows. So be really careful this year when you track your meals and entertainment, is to make sure you keep track whether the meal was a travel meal, like you go out of town for a conference and you're paying for your meals, because those are still going to be deductible. Whether it's you took a client to a meal, so have separate categories for all your different types of meals, because at the end of the year will probably be the first time we'll really know how those are going to be taxed this year.
Okay. A few people are saying that you're echoing a little bit, but I think
that's just kind of that's just kind of the magic of doing one of these kind of interview kind of things. That's going to happen off and on. The connections are going to go up and down. And
yeah. So if you're hearing an echo, it'll come and it'll go, and it'll come and it'll go. Unfortunately, that's how YouTube kind of works. Let's see, Stephanie, we're not skipping your question. We actually already answered it, so be sure to watch the replay. Magically Eclectic said, I haven't really even made $50 yet, but it's gonna cost, if you only make $50, it's gonna cost you more to file than what you're gonna get back, but filing is also an expense, so just keep that in mind. Right, you still got to file because you did make money. Okay, so Catherine asks, my shop is an offshoot of my hobby. How do I go about separating them and making it a business?
A lot of it's how you operate. If you're actually operating your shop as a business, then that's separate, and you're going to keep all those expenses separate. Now, if you're mixing the two, that's when you start getting into trouble. And that, I guess, going back to the first question you asked me about what's the most common issue, is people using personal account for business expenses. You really need to have separate checking accounts. You need to keep, it's going to happen. Like, you're going to run to Hobby Lobby and you're going to pick up some business stuff and you're going to buy one thing personal. Make sure to note that receipt. And it just happens with small businesses, but try the best you can to keep them separate. Now, of course, hobbies, if you're making money on your hobby, you still got to claim that. Hobbies are something you still have to account for in your taxes if you're making money off of it. But keep everything completely as separate as you can, so that way you can file for your business.
Yeah, for our receipts, if we go to the craft store and I buy something for me, and then I'm like, well, I need, this or that, I just take a highlighter and I highlight, the one that was for my business. That way I don't forget, that this was a business one. So, because it does happen, it's easier, if you actually document as you go. Debbie Collins asks, do we need to keep records of all of our fees, even if we don't actually need to pay them? Like with the new Etsy thing in PayPal, where they take the money out of our sales. So do you mean, I think she means sales taxes for those? I'm not sure.
Or you, what I'm taking it as, because you get, let's say you've made a $5 sale and pay a 50-cent fee, you get a net $4.50. So I guess that's the question. You need to keep it separate. True accounting, yes, you do, to have your income and your expenses just flow, but the net effect is the same. So I have seen people just track it straight. Personally, I like keeping them separate. I like knowing how much I'm paying in fees, knowing how much I'm getting in actual income. I don't know how the PayPal import is working into softwares right now. So I don't know, it may be a manual thing you have to separate, but I would suggest separating them.
Okay. And then Cher, once again, if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, please yell at me. What are your thoughts on accounting templates? I currently use them. Do you feel that accounting software is preferable over templates?
No, I mean, templates, there's some really good templates out there. Of course, I guess software has more proven, and, because they're, millions of users, so that they're staying compliant. And software has audit trails. I mean, even QuickBooks now has an audit trail. So if you go in there and delete something, it's going to show what was deleted by what user on what date and time. Whereas in the templates, you have no kind of audit trail. So if you make a mistake or something gets deleted, there's nothing to go back to. So that's the only downside I would say between the two. But again, if you're a small business, you don't have great big volume, your templates are going to give you the information you need.
Yeah. And I mean, everyone asks us, like, because they think this is where the big like misconception is, because our business, you know, runs, obviously we're doing really well with our business, and everyone asks us, you know, what softwares do you use? What magic are you using behind the scenes? And honestly,
paper and an accountant.
We keep our receipts in a shoebox. We highlight our business expenses. We document with a notebook. We total everything up to save our accountant some time, because I don't want to just hand her all of my stuff and say, do this.
I total everything up and then calculate like, these were our computer upgrade expenses. This is how much our phone bill was. And then we keep on the side, if she wants to reference anything, we're like, okay, well, here's the actual, here's the actual stuff.
But, you know, we do that just to make her life a little bit easier, because we like her. We don't use anything magical. I prefer with everything. I prefer pen and paper in all mediums of my business. When it comes to like scheduling, when it comes to, you know, my bookkeeping, I like having that control of pen on paper. But a lot of people prefer to have everything on screen, and, you know, that's great. I'm one of those cynics where I think, you know, well, what happens if our hard drive gets destroyed or something, you know, and we lose everything, or if we don't have it backed up on a cloud.
Right. Or on like certain websites, like a couple of the sites that I buy computer stuff from, they only store your records for 3 years.
Right.
Like after 3 years, there's no receipts or evidence anymore of anything that you've bought. I'm sure they store them on the back end, but you don't have any access to them anymore.
Right. So I just like to have everything in my hands. Okay. So Leathers for Feathers asks, I'll be traveling out of state for a wedding. What would I have to do to make it a business trip? I sell leather bird harnesses. Should I visit a pet store and show them my product?
That would be really careful. If the primary purpose of the trip has to be business. Used to years ago, same thing, like you're saying, people would go visit something and call the whole thing a business, and they're getting to where they watch that closer now. If your primary purchase is the wedding, then any expenses related with visiting that pet store, the mileage driving to it, if you have to, you know, take them to meal possibly, because we don't know how that's going to play out. But, you know, if you have to buy something or something, then that is deductible. But as far as the actual trip, no. Now, if the primary purpose of your trip was to go to a trade show, and then you happened one day you went to a wedding that was in the area, then yes, that's a business trip. You would take off like the one-day hotel that you went to the wedding, but that would be a business trip. But if your primary purpose is the wedding, then no, you can't call it a business trip.
Right. That would be like us going to the Bahamas and saying, well, we're going to go to the Bahamas, but we're just going to happen to have lunch with one of the Handmade Alphas who lives, you know, there. We'll just go out to lunch and then we'll just write off everything. Yay. Like, that's not how it works.
Free margaritas.
A lot of people that did that.
Yeah, we'll write off all of our margaritas that we drank while sitting on the beach. And that's a business expense, right? All right. Let's see. Catherine says, thanks for your answers, Michelle. What's the difference between a hobby that makes money and a business?
It comes into making a profit and actually running it like a business. That is, you're actually trying to go for profit. And of course that you're actually seeing a profit at some point. Like I said, the IRS general rule is seeing a profit in 3 out of 5 years. Now, again, you could see a loss for 5 out of 5 years and still be a business based on their other criteria. But a lot of it comes into you're actually trying to make money. You're actually trying to improve your business, build your customer base, learn more, make changes, you know, adapting so you can make a profit. So that generally is what classifies it as a business.
So would you say that the difference would be like, okay, say that I crochet and I just happen to make a blanket and my best friend says, oh, I want one of those. And you say, well, you know, I'll make you one for $50, as opposed to you saying, okay, well, I'm going to make 20 blankets and I'm going to buy this much supply and then I'm going to put them on this website and sell them. Like, I think that would be the divide from where, you know, you just happen to have someone who wanted to make you something something and they agreed to give you a little bit of money for that one-time thing versus you're going to start producing these products and try to actually, you know, make something bigger out of it.
So my personal thought on that is that once you include that makes money part, that's when it's not a hobby anymore.
Right.
I mean, just to be on the safe side, because you're going to have to, even if it is a hobby, if you make a dime off of it, you still are going to need to file. So yeah, it's either way, it is not a hobby anymore.
It's an income.
If somebody pays you cash under the table, whatever, but.
If it is a hobby, though, keep in mind you can still deduct expenses from your hobby. It's just you're limited to the amount you made. So if you made $200, you can only deduct up to $200 in deductions. Whereas with business, you can go in the negative. You can show a loss. So, right. But even if it's a hobby, keep track of your expenses.
And I've also heard that you can't file in the red for what is it, 3 years? Like 3 years, and that's when the IRS begins?
I think it was a general rule. That's when they start looking at an audit.
Yeah.
That's what kind of makes a flag for them. If you showed a loss for, you know, 3 out of 5 years, 3 or more years out of 5 years, that's when it kind of, raises the flag and they'll start inquiring more.
Okay, good. And then Angelica said that lucky ass alpha living in the Bahamas. Oh, Angelica. Okay. Fingers crossed for all the beginner alphas to be living there in 5 or 10 years. I wish.
No, I don't. Oh, I hate the ocean.
Sorry, we're like moving around.
Bumped the table there. The ocean's scary. Go away.
He's afraid of sharks and things and creatures.
I don't like the ocean.
Okay. So Stephanie says, I have to cut in and out today because I don't know if this has been answered. Okay, so this has been answered, but we'll answer it to be nice. Can Handmade Titan University or Handmade Alpha Academy, not university, can Handmade Alpha Academy be business expenses? So yes.
Education that has to do with your business and what your products are and what your business model is, then yes, it's deductible.
Yeah. And that's like all the business books that I recommend to you guys, all the psychology books and all of that. I write all of
your books.
Yeah. I write all. Now, if I were to go buy, a copy of Harry Potter, no, I would not write off that. But I can write off all of these books that I'm directly using. You know, everything has to be congruent. You have to say, is this really, if the IRS were to ask me, why did you buy this particular book? Would you have a reason to justify that? And would you be able to explain yourself about it? So basically, if it's helping your business in some way, then yes, you can absolutely count it.
That's like with stuff that you don't think. So for my computers, for instance, I don't write everything off that I put into my computers because there's things in there like, and people will think this is weird, but there's water in my computer. I water cool everything in my computer. It's not really a necessary upgrade. It's more aesthetic, so I generally don't write it off. I think it's more just figuring out what you can and can't.
Right.
When it comes to that.
So we'll go ahead and do just a few more since things are slowing down and we've been speeding through questions today. I think more people are listening because we have a lot of viewers. More people are like listening and taking notes and they actually are asking questions. And I think it's because everyone's writing like crazy because things are actually a little slower than what they normally are in terms of the speed that questions are coming in. So let's give it, we'll say like 15 minutes. That way Michelle can get on with her life and you guys have a chance to ask any last minute questions. Magically Eclectic asks, oh, now they're speeding up, of course. Quick question to make sure I understand. So when we get the internet with me working at home and my husband working in a factory, I can take say maybe 85 of the internet and count it as an expense.
Again, are you using that internet 80%? So look at a 24-hour day, how much is business and how much is personal? And of course, how much is it just sitting there not being used? But that's why if you're using it 80% of the time for business, then yes, if that's the main use for it. But if you're streaming movies and, surfing Etsy or Amazon or, personally, then that's personal time. So you need to kind of really get a good gauge on what's personal and what's business.
Right. And be realistic about it. I always think about it like I'm a 26-year-old adult. And if I were to say that 90% of or 100% of my online use was for my business.
They're not stupid.
They're not stupid. They're gonna say, no, you're a 26-year-old.
You're arguing about politics on Facebook. Get real.
Yeah. I mean, but I mean, if you are maybe 86 and you say that 100% of your use of the internet is for business, then that could be a little bit more believable, but you have to be realistic with these things. I mean, they do this.
Be honest.
Yeah. Be honest, be realistic, make sure that you're, actually factoring all of this in. So it doesn't look like we have any more questions. You guys have a few minutes to throw in any last minute ones. Okay. She said, so clocking the internet in and out through the day, 80-20. I mean, I think the estimating is okay. I don't think you need to sit with a notebook every time that you're right.
It's one of those things that it's really hard to prove. Like it's really hard for you to prove the exact number unless you're going through your search history and looking at the clock for every page you go to.
You just do a rough estimate, but make sure that it's not far-fetched, right?
I like to count lower than I do like to
count
higher.
I do that too, because even like I have 2 home businesses. I have my Etsy shop and I have my consulting business, but we also use Netflix. We also Todd watches other YouTube videos, and I go shopping online. So, I mean, I use 50-50 for mine. I'm probably using mine more for business than that, but it's just, I'd rather be on the lower side. Just be realistic about it.
Right. And that's that's what we always undershoot, because there's always, I know that
being honest and responsible. Like if you weren't responsible enough to save what you're going to have to pay back and you're trying to write off more than what you can pay back, like that's already kind of your fault anyway. So I think it's just better to be on the low side than to try to write off everything, like
everything that you possibly can.
My whole life is my business. Like, well, no, it's
not. Okay. And then Roya said, I was just going to ignore the internet as an expense, but I don't think that that's smart either. I don't think that if you've got documentation, right, that they're paying their internet bill, they should try to write off at least a little bit.
Especially if you live in an area that's really expensive. Like I know some places we were paying like over $200 just for internet.
Yeah, that could be a major pennies make dollars. And correct? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, no, if it's a valid expense, definitely delete it. I mean, delete it. Definitely
delete it. Deduct it.
But no, yeah, definitely. Because I mean, if you have an Etsy shop, you're using internet. I mean, that's you're watching these YouTube videos. I mean, this is business. Your videos are. So you're using the internet for business.
Right.
Yeah, and Anne also said that she skipped it as well. A lot of people apparently skip it.
And I mean, it can make a difference. I remember, I think it was our 2nd year in business. We ended up with a lot more expenses than what we were expecting. And after the write-offs and everything, it put us in a lower tax bracket. And we were only like $100 short of that tax bracket. We ended up getting like a couple extra $1,000 back that year just because we fell into a lower tax bracket.
Our bad year?
Yeah, our really
bad year. Everyone has a bad year, right? Like the year that's just awful.
Like we were only like $100 under that thing there, and that's one internet bill that we could have not written off that would have put us back up, and we would have not gotten that couple grand back.
Yeah.
So
Michelle asks, I use my kids as models for my items. Can I deduct the pictures I've taken of my kids? So Michelle, I'm not sure if you mean like the camera.
Are you taking them to like JCPenney's and
are you hiring a photographer? I think it depends, because taking pictures is free.
Well, and one thing to keep in mind, if your kids are you're using them as models and you're giving them $5 for doing it, that's a business expense to you.
that's cool.
Usually that's how a lot of, my son, I used to have him help me with stuff as a way of giving him money while he was in college. He actually did help me. He hates accounting though, but he helped me.
She has pictures.
Oh, they're professional. Yeah.
Oh, then if you're using them in your business, yes. But if you're also like hanging them on your wall for personal, that may be one of those you want to look at a split between. Because I have a feeling you're also having them made to hang on your wall as well. So,
especially if they're good pictures. If I take a good picture of my kid, it's going on the wall. All right. And then Roya, she's the one who asked about the internet and said that she's been skipping it. she said that they stream TV at night too, but that doesn't matter.
Just do a split.
You split it somehow, you know, pick your divide.
If you watch TV for 2 hours a day and you work for 10 hours a day, you're working 10 hours a day.
I mean, yeah, we do the same. I mean, we watch TV. I mean, not
so then 24ths of your business is or of your internet is an expense. I mean, that's just
guesstimate, you know,
guesstimate
and do an intelligent guesstimate.
Say like 30%. I mean, that would sound reasonable.
Right. So Moon Lovers Jewelry, this is a good question. I've actually never thought to ask this. Are there any new business bonus deductions or advantages that you can claim? So, you know, for being a new business, are there any like weird,
well, like Ohio has
oddball?
Ohio has the up to your first $300,000, you don't have to pay Ohio state tax.
Yeah. So do you know of any like universal deductions for startups, like starting up?
Well, the big thing is like your first year, your startup, you can take a bigger depreciation amortization deduction. And that's why a lot of people mess up. They claim like all these startup stuff. Everything you buy for your business up till the day you open it is actually startup cost. So if you pay licenses, you go buy supplies, you know, all that stuff, that is part of your startup cost. And I know that the IRS lets you take a bigger percentage the first year of your startup deductions. Now, I know a lot of, like you were saying, Ohio and stuff, a lot of states do have. But other than the startup deduction, that's the only one I really can think of federal. But definitely check with your states, because I know a lot of states, for the very reason of encouraging small businesses. And, you know, so the states have developed tax breaks.
It brings them money.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then Chelsea asks, is getting an LLC worth it? Which obviously that's what we'll be using for the Handmade Alphas. We definitely don't want to go sole proprietor for something so big, because we're going to be having employees. So a lot of people don't understand what the difference between, you know, having a sole proprietorship and an LLC is. While we have a minute, is that something that you might want to talk about too?
Again, this is one, I mean, I can definitely talk about it, but your best, if you're really in question, talk to your accountant or even talk to an attorney.
Right.
And stuff, that's more of an attorney law than it is accounting even. But the LLC is basically like when you start having employees, you usually want to go to the LLC. If you're getting big or you have a big liability exposure, let's say you make a product, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something.
Skincare that could hurt someone.
Right, that someone could see. Then you're going to want to have that separation between your personal and your business life. And that's what the LLC kind of gives you. The downside to an LLC is once you form that, you're also having to pay state taxes. On top of your personal state income taxes, you're also having to pay state taxes and stuff on that LLC. You're paying franchise excise tax on them. So you're adding another layer of tax. Plus it costs to get the LLC filed and set up and everything. But it really comes into liability is the biggest reason. I operate on mine as sole proprietorship. But again, it's just me. And even with the consulting, I have professional liability insurance to protect me with that. But if you're getting into, like I said, you're selling products that someone might sue you over, or you're getting really big, you're going to want that divide. And that's kind of the concept I've always used of whether or not to start an LLC or not.
Right. And then Michelle's question goes with that. If I pay my kids as models, do I need to be an LLC? Are they considered my employees?
As long as
actually, you can pay your kid, but watch about paying your kids. Even if you're paying them over $600 a year, you're now going to have to do a 1099 for them. And then now there's taxes on their side. But, you know, if you're giving them $5 here, $5 there, then yes, that's going to be, you know, that's an expense to you. They're doing a job for you and it's legit. Make sure you document what they did for you in case the IRS ever comes back and goes, why'd you give your kid $5? Well, probably one of my products for me and I took pictures and, you know, but, you know, and it's great for older kids. Like I said, my son, now I gave my son a 1099 each year, but when he was in college, he used to help me when I'd get overloaded with, you know, accounting stuff. He'd do data entry for me. So it was a way of helping him out, but I was also getting something out of it. And it was a deduction for me. And yes, it was income for him, but he's in a lower tax bracket. So I always help them out with any taxes you owe too. So.
And that's probably fantastic for getting kids in the flow. Because I remember our first year filing taxes. We were 18 years old. I had no idea what I was doing.
No idea.
So
no freaking idea.
We were just clueless. We just like went into H&R Block. No, we did Jackson Hewitt that year.
Hewitt. Take our stuff.
Jackson Hewitt inside of Walmart. And we were just like, here you go. Here's our things. Do your magic. And we were there for like 2.5 hours sitting in Walmart trying to do all that. So getting kids in the habit, since high schools don't teach this stuff. This isn't the type of thing that you learn when you're that young. And most of the time, though you could take a class in college, by that time, hopefully you already have at least a small scale job, like fast food or something. You don't know how to file those taxes. That is not even in the realm of your head. At that time, I thought that all the money's mine because I made it. I'm entitled to all of it. And
Stephanie just asked another question on top of that said, if I have friends that I pay, that's going to fall under the same thing as the kids.
Yeah. Do I need to be an LLC if I have friends that I pay? Now, there is a difference between having an employee and contracting like a small amount of work for
$20-$30.
Right.
Well, even that is not even the dollar amount. What comes into whether or not they're a subcontractor for your employee is whether or not you're controlling their schedule. So it would be like if I had told my son, okay, you have to come work between 10 and 12 every day, then he's an employee. I'm telling him when to do it, but I would tell him, okay, whenever you've got free time, can you get this pile of stuff done for me? Well, then he's a contractor. If you've got a friend that's helping you run some errands for you or deliver stuff or everything, then they can be a 1099. They're not a regular employee. But do keep in mind, if you pay them more than $600 in a year, then you're legally obligated to give them a 1099. Mm-hmm. And that's something I will say they've really started watching more because so many people weren't giving 1099s. And the Department of Labor's too look at that to make sure you've got subcontractors and they're not employees too. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Right. And then for when we do affiliates, what's the form that we get for affiliate?
1099. Is
it a 1099 that we receive for affiliate? Yeah. Because we sell occasionally, when Renee Christine has one of her courses, we'll sell it
do a joint venture.
Yeah, we'll joint venture with her, and
she sends a 1099 before she even lets us have the money.
Yeah, so she's on it.
So it's just so everybody's safe. Both parties are safe.
Right. So you just have to be responsible for that and understand what you're getting into when you decide that you're going to pull somebody that far on board, where you're not just okay, help me with this one little thing this one time, where you actually have them doing something on a larger scale. Then that's when you might want to consider going in and getting that LLC, because that's when people are going to start paying attention. Okay, let's see.
Next is corporation versus LLC.
Corporation versus LLC.
You're getting into, again, that's more to talk to you. Corporation is really for your big people. LLCs are your smaller. Now they do have, and again, this is one of the things that is so many arguments about how that's going to change, but there was a way that you could elect for an LLC to be taxed like an S corp. But again, that's in question with the new tax laws. So that's when you start getting into thinking about whether or not you want to be an LLC, corporation, something like that, talk to an attorney, talk to
Yeah. Yes. So for you guys that are asking the questions about LLC, sole proprietorships, all that stuff, that's more of a question for an attorney. So I would definitely get with more of a legal expert on something like that.
Right. And I mean, if you just want to ask like a quick question to an attorney, you just want to kind of test the waters just a little bit before, not Fiverr, justanswer.com.
Yeah, Just Answer.
You can pay a little bit, talk to an attorney for, just to ask a quick question before you actually book that expensive appointment. And it kind of helps you out a little bit. That way you can at least test the water, get a small question in. That way you know what you're going into. Okay, so we've got a few more questions, and then I think that we're going to go ahead and finish up after that. If you're okay to answer maybe like 2 or 3 more, the ones that we got left. Okay, great. So Stephanie asks, this goes along with employees. So what if we pay someone in product to do a job for us? Can we write that off? For example, I have a mermaid friend who's going to model some jewelry for me for pictures, and I'm going to pay her with jewelry. Can she write off the jewelry?
That would depend on whether or not you're expensing everything as you buy it or you're keeping it as inventory. If you have already expensed it as you bought it, all your supplies, then no, because you've already written it off. But if it is something that you're keeping track of and is part of your inventory, then yes, you can deduct the cost of what it was to give that inventory to her. So if it's now, you can't deduct the retail cost of it. So let's say you made a necklace and it cost you $20 to make and you sell it for $40, you can only deduct the $20, not the $40. And you can't include your time in that cost. Your time is not a tax deduction.
So supply costs.
Right, just the supply cost.
Okay. And then Kelsey asks, I'm an artist and my accountant recommended that I create an LLC to protect my assets. So I did. He told me that it was safer. I like just taking care of the taxes monthly. Is there anything wrong with that?
I'm assuming paying your estimated taxes or your LLC taxes or your franchise excess to the state, then no. I mean, you can pay it monthly. You're still going to have to file an annual return. But I have never seen a tax agency that, turns down you sending them money.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you're sending them money. They're not going to say, no, we don't want to take that somewhere else. So Jam asks, what form should I use if I pay other artists royalty fees to use their artwork on the apparel that I sell? So if I were to buy, some type of artwork to have maybe printed on t-shirts, what form should she use to pay those royalty fees?
That's the same thing. If you pay them over $600 in a year, you're going to do a 1099 for them. Anybody that you are paying to do something or for you now, well, you're buying a royalty. Now, if you're buying a product, you don't have to. But if you're buying a service and they are not a corporation, then you're supposed to give them a 1099 if you're paying them over $600. So if you have someone come in and paint your house and you pay them $800, then you're supposed to give them a 1099. People aren't always good about doing that, but the royalties you would definitely, so you would need to get her to complete what's called a Form W-9, the person you're buying the art royalties from, and that W-9 is your way of collecting her tax information, her tax number or her social security number, if that's what she uses, and then at the end of the year, you'll do a 1099.
Yeah, and that the W-9 is what we receive from anytime we do any type of affiliate thing where we're selling something for someone else. That's the form that we get from them. So, and then I don't understand what this question means. She asked, so how does this work for an art gallery? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that.
Like, I'm assuming maybe they're charging people entry. You just file your taxes as any other business would, I would assume.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. So you might need to well, we're running out of time, so we might need to save that one for the Handmade Alpha group. And then Anne did say Friends of Indie Law. I don't know if you're familiar with Friends of Indie Law. That's a really great group for asking questions about, your LLC. Friends of Indie Law is a really just great group in general for legal questions.
I've had questions that I posted in there for like my band stuff.
Yeah, Friends of Indie Law is a really great group. Let's see. Okay, and then Roya said LLCs are for protecting yourself legally, not so much a tax thing, right?
Right. Yeah. Because you're actually going to pay more taxes because you get into the state taxes.
Yeah.
It's a protection. It's a legality protection.
Oh, okay. And then about the art gallery, she means taxes paid if she makes a sale from that art gallery. So that would be the same. It would just be another income, right? Just another. Right.
If she's putting her art in an art gallery on commission or something like that, she's going to get a 1099 from the art gallery that shows how you paid her.
Right. And if for any reason what if it's only like for a couple dollars or something, or if she makes like $20 from that art gallery, would they still need to send her that form?
No, they only have to send it if it's, now some do send them for anything, but they're only required if it's more than $600. But she should still claim the $20 income that she made, but she won't get the tax form from the gallery then.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm sure that there's plenty of art galleries out there that don't, you know, that just say, here's your money, bye, you know. So, all right, guys, this has been a really, really great Q&A. We had so many awesome questions, and this is going to be a really good reference that we can keep up. It's going to always be here. And you guys, Michelle's information is all down below. I've got her Etsy shop down in the description. I have her accounting website down in the description. Michelle, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. How can people reach you? What's the best way to contact you? Obviously, Etsy, they can message you there. But in terms of accounting, what is the very best way that they can reach you if they're interested in your services?
On the website, there actually is a contact page, or also my direct email for the consulting business is michelle@ASolution4U consulting.com. That's the letter U and the number 4. And then, of course, I'm also part of the Handmade Alpha group. So if you do have a question, just, you know, tag me in it. I don't mind asking if you have a real quick question, but you can post them in there and I'll probably answer them.
Yeah. And guys, I do not care if you guys want to carry the conversations over there. And if you think of anything, you know, later on that you want to ask Michelle, you're more than welcome to use the Handmade Alpha group for that. Just keep in mind that our disclaimer is carrying over to the Handmade Alpha group that, you know, that she gave at the beginning. Always be sure to consult with your personal accountant when it comes to, you know, questions like this, because there's only so much that she can give in the realm of advice. And also respect the fact that she does do this for a living as well. So don't abuse her in a way that, you know, where you should actually be hiring her. Try not to like bug her every single day, emailing her nonstop with your questions, because she does do this for money. So she's got to be able to feed all of her amazing pets that she has, obviously. Michelle, thank you so much for hanging out. Everyone is thanking you in the comments. This has been one of our best Q&A so far. Thank you. And guys, we will see you probably next Friday.
Thanks.
Awesome. Bye, guys. See you, Michelle.
Bye.
Bye.